The day you stop explaining yourself is the day your power becomes unstoppable. They let you go, my friend. Maybe they even acted like they were doing you a favor, as if you'd be the one sitting there, broken and confused, waiting for a message that never comes. But here's the truth. They expected distance, not disappearance. They thought you'd stick around, still orbiting their world, like a satellite they could summon at any time. What they never expected was your silent goodbye. Imagine this. You're a fire burning bright in the middle of the night, not wild, not out of control, just glowing steady and dangerously calm. Someone walks away from you thinking the fire will still be there when they feel cold, but when they come back, they find nothing but ashes. That's what your silence becomes. Not a punishment, not a threat, but a final warmth they didn't appreciate until it was gone. And that's what this is really about. Not the noise you could have made, not the things you could have said. It's about the strength it takes to say absolutely nothing, to walk away when every part of you wants to stay, to close the door not with bitterness, but with peace. Let's break a lie real quick. People say if they let you go, they never really cared. That's false. Some people do care, but they care in a selfish way. They expect you to stick around even after they walk out. They think they can hurt you and still keep your loyalty. But the moment you stop chasing, the game changes. The moment you stop watching their stories, stop checking in, stop hoping they feel it. And here's the twist. They feel your silence louder than they ever felt your words. Seneca once said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And in your case, to walk away without closure, without validation, without even saying goodbye, that's not weakness, that's warrior-level courage. That's emotional armor forged in the fire of self-respect. Most folks make noise when they leave you. You disappeared like a storm that has already passed, leaving the ground soaked, changing the air, and not a single explanation behind. Trust me, that kind of calm shakes people. Some of you might laugh when I say this, but your silence is like unfollowing someone emotionally, not just on social media, but in real life. You no longer check their feed. You're too busy building yours. You don't need to watch their highlight reel. You're focused on creating your own real-life wins. They thought they'd hear from you at 2 a.m. one night. Maybe a, "Hey, I miss you." But all they got was the echo of their own choices. No drama, no second chance. Just that soft, unshakable energy of someone who chose peace over pride. If you're wondering whether they noticed you disappeared, oh, they did. The minute you stopped chasing, you became unforgettable. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. That's stoic power. That's the kind of silence that lingers and makes people question if they ever really knew your worth. So if you're listening to this and thinking, "Damn, that's me," stand tall, my friend. You didn't fold, you evolved. You didn't ghost them, you freed yourself. And you didn't walk away to prove a point. You walked away because you finally saw your own value. Write this in the comments if you feel it. I let go quietly. Let's flood this section with calm power, with silent strength, with real growth. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me because we're just getting started. They thought you'd cling, but you let go instead. When you stop responding to chaos, people start calling you cold. But that's not cold, that's clarity. There's this look people get when they realize the door they walked out of no longer opens. It's not panic, not right away. It's confusion like, wait, you're not going to stop me. You're not going to chase me. They pause, expecting your usual message, waiting for the soft landing they assumed you'd provide. But instead, all they get is silence. Not petty silence, not manipulative silence, just the kind of silence that says, I heard you, I respected your choice, now I'm choosing mine. Imagine you're standing at a train station. Someone hops off your train telling you they need space or time or that it's not working anymore. They expect you to stop the train, to sit still, to wait for them to come back when they're ready. But what happens instead? The engine roars, the doors close, and you keep moving. That moment, that unexpected movement, that's when it hits them. Because you didn't beg, you didn't stall, you didn't even wave, you just left. Now, let's be real. This part hurts. This is where the doubt creeps in. Am I heartless for letting go so quickly? What if they come back and I'm not there? What if I gave up too soon? That fear, that's what keeps most people stuck. We've been fed a lie that if you care, you should hold on. That love means fighting even when the other person isn't fighting for you. That letting go means giving up. But the truth is, sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever do is nothing at all. Clinging is easy, it's familiar. It makes us feel like we're in control. But what they don't tell you is that peace requires power. The kind of power that doesn't flinch when someone walks away. The kind of power that whispers, "If I'm not chosen freely, I won't be chosen at all." Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Instead of reacting, instead of panicking, you paused. You took a breath. You reminded yourself that your value isn't proven by who stays. It's revealed by who leaves. They thought you'd stick around. Maybe send that "How are you?" text. Maybe like a post. Maybe show up when they missed you enough to reach out. But here's where you flipped the script. You didn't wait to be chosen again. You chose you. You didn't play emotional roulette hoping the next spin would land in your favor. You stepped away from the table, and let's not pretend it was easy. It never is. Detachment isn't born from indifference. It's forged in the fires of discipline. You still felt the pull, the ache, the questions, but you didn't answer them with action. You answered them with reflection. You looked at your life and asked, "Do I want to keep bleeding energy into someone who already let go?" And your silence became your answer. They expected you to cling. You let go. They expected heartbreak. You chose healing. They thought you'd linger. You disappeared gracefully. And now they're sitting with a new emotion. Not guilt, not anger, but curiosity. Why didn't he fight for me? Did he really care? Is he already gone? Let them wonder. That wondering is louder than any apology you could have written. Your absence isn't revenge. It's a reflection, a mirror they didn't expect to face, one that shows them what happens when you walk away from something that no longer values you. So here's what I want you to do. Pause for a second and look back at that moment you decided to let go. Not emotionally, not halfway, but fully. That wasn't weakness. That was the moment you became unshakable. That's when you broke free from the cycle. That's when you stopped being someone waiting to be chosen and became someone walking in their purpose. Type this in the comments if you've been there. I let go with power. Say it for you. Say it for the ones who think silence is surrender. Say it for the world that still believes clinging means caring. Stay with me because what's coming next? Oh, it's even deeper. We're about to talk about what really happens when you give them exactly what they asked for and why it shakes them more than they'll ever admit. Be careful what you walk away from. Not everything waits for you to come back. They said they needed space. They said they weren't ready. They said it's best if we go our separate ways. And you, being the person you are, calm, grounded, stoic, you gave them exactly what they asked for. No resistance, no begging, no last-ditch speeches to try and change their mind. You didn't panic, you didn't push, you simply stepped back. And that's what shocked them, because most people don't mean it when they say, "I need space." What they really mean is, "I want to see if you'll still wait for me." It's not about space, it's about control. They wanted you to be available while they figured things out. They wanted the comfort of knowing that if things didn't work out elsewhere, you'd still be there, emotionally parked just outside the door. But you didn't play that game. You gave them space and then some. You didn't just step away. You let the silence stretch. You didn't peek, didn't hover. didn't leave breadcrumbs behind. You didn't text just to check in or casually react to a story just to remind them you're still there. You disappeared with dignity, not to hurt them, but because you respected their choice enough to not interfere. Now, here's the hard part to swallow for them, not for you. They thought their words were a test. They thought if they pushed, you'd pull harder, that if they left, you'd come chasing. But when the only thing they got back from you was silence, that's when it started to sting. Not because you were mean, not because you were spiteful, but because you were honest. You showed them something real, that actions have consequences. You didn't punish them, you honored their decision, and that kind of maturity, that kind of stillness, it's disarming, it's rare, it's powerful. Seneca said, sometimes even to be let go is a form of flattery. It shows they believe you'll chase. And when you don't, when you choose stillness over desperation, when you choose boundaries over breadcrumbs, they feel it in a way they didn't expect. And let's not pretend this was easy for you. Letting go without closure, that's heavy. Walking away without trying to fix it takes a kind of emotional muscle that's built through experience, through heartbreak, through the long, quiet nights when all you wanted was a sign. And still, you stayed silent. You sat with the discomfort. You didn't escape it. You transformed through it. They expected you to act like everyone else. The late-night messages, the "I miss you" texts, the "Can we talk" moments. But you chose a different path. You chose to respect their words, and in doing so, you made your own louder. You see, the people who say, "I need space," don't expect space. They expect you to wait in emotional limbo, to sit on the bench while they play the game. But when you actually walk off the field, when you put down the ball and leave the stadium without looking back, suddenly they realize they weren't prepared for your absence. Now they're left with the echo of their own choices. Now the silence they asked for feels a little colder than expected. Now they're scrolling to see if you've watched their story, refreshing to see your name. And every time you're not there, it says something. It says everything. Not every goodbye has to be loud. Some just have to be final. And the beautiful part of this, you didn't need to be cruel to be clear. You didn't have to raise your voice to make your boundaries known. You gave them exactly what they asked for, and in doing that, you gave yourself what you needed too. So ask yourself now, were you really letting go of love, or were you finally letting go of the illusion of it? Let's rewrite the story that says walking away means you didn't care. No, walking away often means you cared enough to stop trying to convince someone of your worth. You cared enough to protect your peace. You cared enough to no longer accept halfway love. That's what Stoicism teaches us, that real power isn't in the reaction, it's in the restraint. That sometimes silence isn't just a pause, it's the end of a chapter. So if this part hits something in your chest, type this in the comments. I honored their choice. Say it proudly, let it be seen. Show the world what it looks like when a person chooses peace over performance. And stay with me, because next we're diving into something deeper, how your silent goodbye wasn't just silence, it was closure they never expected. Closure doesn't always come with words. Sometimes it arrives with a door that never opens again. Let's tell the truth here, my friend. You didn't disappear to make a scene. You didn't vanish to teach anyone a lesson. You simply left, calmly, quietly, fully. No announcement, no breakdown, no final paragraph begging to be understood. You just closed the chapter, and that's what shook them. See, most people are used to dramatic exits, loud arguments, endless texts, one last voice note to pour out every emotion. But not you. You didn't need to yell, you didn't need to explain yourself. Your goodbye wasn't some explosion. It was a slow, steady breath of acceptance. And that silence, that stillness, was the loudest thing you ever said. Picture this. You're walking out of a room. You leave the light on, the door cracked slightly open, just in case. That's what most people do. They say they're done, but they leave signs, clues, escape routes. Not you. You turned off the light, closed the door, and kept walking. No keys left under the mat, no spare words waiting for a rainy day. That's not being cold, that's being clear. They didn't expect that. They didn't expect the ending to feel real. They thought they could circle back if things didn't work out. They thought you'd stay emotionally available, frozen in time like a bookmarked page in a story they could revisit. But when you closed the book and put it back on the shelf for good, it hit different. That's when they realized they weren't holding a story. They were holding a memory. And let's be honest, there were probably moments when your silence felt like a war inside. Moments when you wanted to explain, to justify, to share your side. But you didn't, because deep down you knew no amount of words would ever make someone value what they failed to protect when it was right in front of them. You didn't owe them your pain. You didn't owe them your breakdown. You owed yourself peace. So you gave yourself the only kind of closure that truly lasts, the kind that comes from walking away without bitterness, from refusing to bleed in front of people who never deserved to see your wounds in the first place. That's the stoic strength most people don't understand. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And your silent goodbye, that was freedom. That was you releasing control of the outcome, releasing the need to be heard, to be chosen, to be understood. That was you taking your power back without raising your voice. Some folks might say, you should have told them how you felt. Maybe, but what's the point in pouring out your soul to someone who already made peace with losing you? What's the point in explaining your worth to someone who saw it and still walked away? No, your silence said it all. It said, I respect myself too much to stay where I'm not appreciated. It said, I don't need a final conversation to validate my feelings. It said, I'm not waiting, I'm not hoping, I'm moving forward now. And here's the twist. They'll feel that silence. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day they'll hear a song, see a post, or sit alone with their thoughts, and it'll hit them. You didn't just leave. You left without looking back. And that finality, that absence of drama, of second chances, of one last conversation, that's what lingers the longest. Because it wasn't a goodbye filled with pain and fireworks. It was a goodbye wrapped in self-respect. The kind that doesn't chase, the kind that doesn't explain, the kind that closes the door not with anger, but with clarity. So if you're sitting here wondering if your silence meant anything, trust me, it did. It spoke volumes. It said, I'm done trying to be heard in places that never truly listened. That kind of exit leaves a mark, not because it was loud, but because it was real. Type this in the comments if you've been there. I closed the door in peace. Let them know. Let yourself know. Let the world know that your strength didn't come from the noise, but from the stillness. And stay with me, because next we're diving into the part that really catches them off guard. They expected distance, but not complete disappearance. It wasn't the silence that broke them. It was realizing you weren't on the other end anymore. They thought you'd pull away, sure. They expected you to be quiet for a while, maybe post less, go dark on texts. But still be there, still orbiting, still watching. Still just one like, one reply, one I miss you away. That's what most people expect when they let someone go. They expect distance, not disappearance. But you did something they never saw coming. You didn't just give them space, you gave them absence. And that's a different kind of silence. See, they were ready for the usual emotional script. They thought you'd play your part, that you'd quietly hurt, wait it out, keep the door cracked open just in case. They thought you'd watch their stories, maybe send a birthday text, maybe accidentally bump into them somewhere, as if the universe still had unfinished business. But the universe had other plans. You vanished with grace. No tantrum, no message saying, I hope we can talk someday. You just stopped showing up, not just in their phone, but in their world. No likes, no just checking in, no curiosity masked as friendliness. You disappeared, not to cause confusion, but because you had finally found your clarity. They didn't expect that. They weren't ready for you to become a ghost they couldn't summon. See, distance still leaves the door open. Distance still suggests maybe, but disappearance, that's final, that's different. That's the sound of someone saying, I'm not in this chapter anymore and I'm not rereading it either. Let me paint it like this. Imagine someone steps out of a room expecting you to still be there when they come back. They think you're sitting quietly in the corner, thinking, waiting, missing them. But when they return, the room is empty, the chair is cold, the energy is gone, and all they're left with is the haunting realization that you're not coming back. That kind of silence echoes loud, long, deep. But here's what people won't tell you: that kind of silence takes strength. Because there were nights you wanted to reach out, moments where you checked your phone, maybe typed something out and deleted it, maybe hovered over their profile, thumb shaking, thinking just one message. But you didn't do it. You remembered who you are. You remembered what you're worth. You remembered that going back to someone who made peace with losing you is a step backward. Your soul no longer accepts. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." You proved yourself in that silence. You showed restraint, not out of pride, but out of power. You didn't vanish to hurt them, you vanished to heal. You weren't trying to make them wonder. You just stopped wondering about someone who couldn't see your worth when it mattered most. That absence, it's confusing to them, and you know why? Because it says something they weren't ready to hear. I no longer need your presence to validate mine. They wanted to believe you'd wait, that you'd be emotionally reachable even after the break. But when the silence stretched and you never reached back, they had to sit with their own decisions. And let's be honest, most people don't like facing the consequences of what they asked for. They want the freedom to walk away without the discomfort of your absence. But you weren't built to be someone's backup plan. You weren't born to be someone's emotional safety net. You were made for more than lingering in the shadow of someone's indecision. So now they're scrolling, checking, hoping, not because you said anything, but because you said nothing. Not because you moved away, but because you moved on. And if you're feeling like that silence went unnoticed, don't fool yourself, it didn't. That empty space where your energy used to be, it's louder than ever. Your absence left a mark, not because you meant to, but because when a strong presence disappears, the void becomes undeniable. Type this in the comments if you feel this in your soul. I disappeared with dignity. Let them see it. Let them feel it. Let yourself know it. Stay with me, because next, we're going deeper into something most people never understand. You didn't walk away for attention. You walked away for transformation. If peace costs me your confusion, your silence, or your absence, I'll gladly pay the price. Let's talk about the part that nobody claps for, the part where you stop playing games. The moment you stop trying to make them jealous, stop posting to get noticed, stop pretending you're doing fine just to make them regret that quiet decision to stop performing and start healing. That's when everything begins to shift. You didn't choose revenge. You didn't play mind games. You didn't try to bait them back in with cryptic quotes or mirror selfies under perfect lighting. You didn't post new beginnings captions hoping they'd notice the glow up. Because the truth is, you weren't chasing their attention. You were chasing something much harder to find in this world, your own peace. They expected games, they expected breadcrumbs. They thought they'd feel your presence even after the goodbye. Maybe a like here, a story view there, a late night message saying, just wanted to say hi. But you broke the pattern. You broke the unspoken rules of the emotional tug-of-war, and you did it without a word. You chose growth, quiet, lonely, relentless growth. And that's what they didn't see coming. Let's be real. Choosing growth over games isn't glamorous, it's not flashy. There's no applause when you go to the gym with a heavy heart. Nobody's watching when you're journaling your thoughts instead of texting them. No one throws a party because you turned your pain into discipline instead of dysfunction. But that's what made you different. You turned inward. You got to work not on proving your worth to them, but on remembering it for yourself. And don't think for a second that the silence you chose wasn't loud. Oh, it was deafening. Because when someone expects attention and all they get is stillness, they start to question, not just your feelings, but their own decisions. That curiosity they once hoped you would drown in, it's turned on them now. The silence they expected to manipulate, now it surrounds them. You didn't go missing, you just went inward. And in a world full of noise, that kind of silence is unforgettable. Marcus Aurelius said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, only what you do." You lived that. You stopped watching their every move and started watching your own. You began showing up differently, not louder, not more visibly, but more intentionally. You stopped trying to catch their eye. You started catching your own reflection and finally seeing someone worth fighting for. They thought you'd spiral. They thought you'd break. Maybe they even thought they'd still live rent-free in your mind while you tried to piece yourself back together. But instead of unraveling, you rebuilt, brick by brick, routine by routine, habit by habit. And the best part? You didn't do it for applause. You didn't do it so they'd regret losing you. You did it because your higher self demanded it. Growth doesn't look good on the outside right away. It looks like quiet nights, missed calls, choosing solitude when the world tells you to rebound. It looks like waking up at 6 a.m. to train a body that's still carrying heartbreak. It looks like choosing books over bottles, like deleting the number, not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop checking. You didn't go ghost. You became a presence they can't reach anymore. Not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you're becoming unavailable to things that shrink you. You used to be accessible, predictable, emotionally loyal to someone who couldn't see your value. Now you're focused, you're healing, you're not bitter, you're becoming better. And here's what really flipped the story. You stopped needing closure from them because you started building completion within you. You didn't ask for a conversation to help you move on. You created movement through your own consistency. You didn't need a final apology to forgive. You forgave by freeing yourself. Type this in the comments if this part speaks to where you are. I chose growth over games. Say it with your chest. Say it for the version of you that used to chase. Say it for the one who finally chose discipline over drama. And stay with me because we're not done yet. Next, we're diving into one of the most powerful shifts of all. How your absence made them wonder more than your presence ever did. You let them wonder, and that was enough. Sometimes the loudest message is the one you never send. There's a certain kind of power that doesn't come from words or looks or presence. It comes from mystery, from restraint, from not giving someone the answers they expected. You didn't block them. You didn't call them out. You didn't chase them down, asking why. You didn't write a paragraph to explain your silence. You just left space. And in that space, you let them wonder. Most people don't miss your presence. They miss your access. They miss knowing that if they reached out, you'd be there. That if they messed up, they could circle back and fix it. That you'd always give them one more chance. And for a while, maybe you would have, but not this time. This time, you did something different. This time, you gave them nothing but stillness, and it said everything. They expected questions. They expected you to need answers, to text at night asking if they're okay, to send one last message trying to make sense of it all. She might have even rehearsed her replies thinking you'd crack. But when none of that came, when you didn't fold, when all she got was silence, it shook her. Because now she's the one sitting with the questions. And the scariest part? You're not providing any answers. That's what happens when you stop showing up for people who were only half present for you. You flip the story. You stop being the one wondering and you let them carry the weight of uncertainty. And let's be clear, you didn't do it to be petty. This wasn't about making her suffer. This was about making your peace more important than her closure. Let's take a moment and really think about this. Why do they expect us to chase? Why is it so surprising when we don't? Because we live in a world that teaches people, especially men, that love means proving, explaining, convincing. But the truth, real love doesn't need to be begged for. It's either returned or it's released. And you chose to release it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." And that's what you protected, your self-respect. You didn't chase someone who gave up on you. You didn't need to make them feel your pain. You didn't need to shout your worth. You simply stopped, quietly, fully. That's what makes them curious. That's what makes them scroll late at night, wondering what you're doing, who you're with, if you've already moved on. The silence they once assumed was weakness is now being redefined as something else entirely: power. You became a question mark, not an exclamation point. You stopped being predictable. You stopped giving them emotional access. You became unavailable in a world where everyone's trying to keep the door half open, and that is rare. You didn't tell her what you were feeling. You didn't give her one last scene. You didn't fight for the last word. And now she's left wondering if maybe, just maybe, she lost something she'll never find again. That wondering, that not knowing, stays with people because there's something about a person who can walk away quietly, who doesn't need to prove they're winning, who doesn't post to get attention or speak to get noticed, who just moves forward. Let her wonder. Let her sit in the silence she thought would be comfortable. Let her replay your last conversation, wondering if she missed something. Let her scroll through old photos, searching for signs that maybe you still care. Let her realize too late that the person she thought would always be there has already become someone she no longer has access to. And here's the best part. You're not wondering anymore. You're no longer waiting for the what if or the maybe one day. You've replaced questions with direction. You've replaced longing with purpose. You've stopped needing answers because now you've built something stronger than closure. You've built clarity. If this spoke to your spirit, type it in the comments. I let them wonder. Say it with pride. Say it for every time you almost folded and didn't. Say it for the version of you that used to need their attention and now doesn't. Stay with me, because next, we're going even deeper. We're going to talk about the moment you stopped looking back because you finally chose you. The moment you stop waiting for them is the moment you start becoming you. There's something sacred about the moment you finally stop turning around. Something powerful about choosing yourself without needing an apology, a reason, or one last look. For the longest time, you might have been walking forward, sure, but your head was still twisted over your shoulder, glancing back, hoping, wondering, asking questions in silence. Not anymore. That part of you, the part that lived in limbo, is gone now. You didn't just move on, you moved inward, and that changed everything. You stopped checking if they watched your story. You stopped wondering if they'd come back. You stopped rereading old messages like they held clues to a different ending. That version of you, the one who waited in the shadows for a sign, finally laid down and let the new you rise. Not because you stopped loving them, not because you forgot what it felt like, but because you finally asked the real question, what about me? See, most people think letting go happens in one moment, a breakup, a goodbye, a blocked number, but it doesn't. Letting go happens quietly in the small decisions, when you stop replaying the same memory, when you stop trying to understand why they chose to walk away, when you stop needing their validation to believe in your own value. That's what you did. You didn't let go once. You let go every single day. You didn't look back. Every day you chose you. For a while, it was tempting to hold on, not to them necessarily, but to the idea of what it could have been, the dream, the potential, the if only. But dreams without effort are just illusions. And you woke up, you saw the truth, and it hurt. Yeah, it burned. But you didn't let that fire consume you. You used it to forge something new, a stronger version of yourself, one that doesn't beg for clarity, one that creates it. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize they've been living for someone else's approval. It's a quiet, gut-wrenching moment. It doesn't come with a big realization. It creeps in slowly through the silence, through the nights when you're alone with your thoughts, through the hours you waste overthinking someone who barely thinks of you. And then one day, you stop. Not because it doesn't hurt anymore, but because you're tired of hurting yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And that's what you took back. Your thoughts, your focus, your attention. You realized your mind was a garden, and you were letting someone else trample through it even after they left. So you closed the gate. You started planting new things: discipline, confidence, purpose. You stopped watering the memories. You started building the future. And that's not easy, my friend. Choosing yourself isn't easy when all you've known is sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort. But you did it. You made the choice. Not once, not for revenge, not to prove a point, but because your soul whispered, "This isn't where we stay." The fear was real too. Let's not lie about that. Fear that no one else would understand you like they did. Fear that maybe this was your only chance at love. Fear that walking away meant being alone. But you learned something in that fear. You were never really loved if you had to lose yourself to keep them. So now you don't look back. Not because you're bitter, not because you don't care, but because there's nothing there for you anymore. You're not chasing ghosts. You're not stuck in what-ifs. You're standing in the now, and you're building something with your own two hands. You chose yourself, and not just once. Every morning you wake up and don't check for their presence. Every night you go to sleep without rereading old conversations. Every time someone brings up their name and you feel nothing but peace, that's choosing you. So if this hit your heart, type it in the comments. I chose me. Say it for the version of you that never felt like enough. Say it for the moments you almost turned around. Say it because now you're finally walking forward with both eyes open. And stay with me because what's coming next is the truth most never say out loud. Your absence didn't go unnoticed. It became your legacy.